The moment the knife pressed against his throat, Ryan Mercer made a choice that would destroy everything he'd built. For 8 years, he'd been invisible, just another broke single dad grinding through night shifts, keeping secrets buried deeper than his wife's grave. But when Seattle's most ruthless billionaire walked into his restaurant that stormy November night, his carefully constructed lie began to crack. What happened next would turn him into a viral sensation, put his son in the crosshairs of criminals, and force him to become the one thing he swore he'd never be again. Like this video, comment what city you're watching from, and let's see how far this story travels. The rain came down like bullets on Pike Street, turning Seattle's pavement into black mirrors that reflected nothing but harsh streetlights and the occasional passing headlight. Ryan Mercer stood at the kitchen entrance of Cascade Bistro, watching water stream down the windows, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold an hour ago. 11:30 on a Thursday night. The dining room was nearly empty except for 2 regulars nursing whiskey in the corner booth and Maria wiping down tables, her movements tired and mechanical. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor. "Ethan's asleep. Don't worry. Take your time." Ryan's jaw tightened. His 8-year-old shouldn't be sleeping at a neighbor's apartment 3 nights a week. But there was no other choice. Single father working graveyard manager shifts didn't exactly scream stability, and every dollar counted when you were trying to keep your kid from noticing how close to broke you really were. Ryan, Marcus, the head chef, stuck his head through the pass. "Just got a call. Late reservation. Party of 6. They'll be here in 20. We're closing in 30 minutes. "I know, but it's Elena Vaughn." The name hung in the air like a curse. Ryan had never met her, but everyone in Seattle knew who she was. Tech billionaire. 30 years old, built her company, Apex Dynamics, from nothing into an empire that made grown men in boardrooms break into cold sweats. The woman who'd crushed 3 competitors in the last year alone, buying them out at pennies on the dollar after systematically destroying their reputations and stock prices. Forbes called her a visionary. Her enemies called her something else. "She knows we're closing?" "I told her. She said she didn't care." Marcus wiped his hands on his apron. "She's bringing investors from Tokyo. Said it has to be tonight." Ryan drank the cold coffee and grimaced. "Set up table 9. Tell Maria." "Already did." Marcus hesitated. "You good with this? She's got a reputation." "For what?" "Being a nightmare." Then she'll fit right in." Ryan set the cup down. "Just make the food perfect. I'll handle the rest." Marcus disappeared back into the kitchen. Ryan rolled his shoulders, feeling the old tension settle between his blades. It had been 8 years since he'd worked private security, 8 years since he'd walked away from that life after Sarah died. But some instincts didn't fade. They just went quiet, waiting. The front door opened at 11:53. Elena Vaughn walked in like she owned the air itself. She was smaller than Ryan expected, maybe 5'6" in heels that clicked against the hardwood with the precision of a metronome. Black suit. No jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than his annual salary. Dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her face was angular, sharp, the kind of beautiful that made you nervous rather than comfortable. But it was her eyes that caught him, pale gray, calculating, moving across the restaurant like a predator assessing territory. Behind her came 5 men in expensive suits, all Japanese, all looking exhausted and uncomfortable. They followed her to the table without speaking. Maria approached with menus. Ryan watched from the kitchen entrance as Elena sat down without waiting for anyone to pull out her chair, barely glancing at the menu Maria offered. "We'll have the chef's tasting menu, all of it, and bring us the 2015 Chateau Margaux." Elena's voice was cold, flat, like she was reading a grocery list. She didn't look at Maria when she spoke. Maria nodded, her smile tight. "Of course. I'll let the chef, and tell whoever's managing tonight to come out here." Maria's eyes flicked toward Ryan. "That's Ryan. I didn't ask for a biography. Just get him." Maria walked back, her face flushed. Ryan pushed off the wall and crossed the dining room, his footsteps quiet on the hardwood. He stopped at the edge of the table, hands loose at his sides. "I'm Ryan Mercer, manager. How can I help you?" Elena looked up at him, and for a moment something shifted in her expression. A flicker of surprise, maybe interest, gone so fast he might have imagined it. Her eyes traveled from his face down to his hands, then back up. "You look like you should be working a different kind of job." One of the Japanese investors coughed, embarrassed. Ryan kept his face neutral. I manage a restaurant. That's not what I asked. Elena leaned back in her chair, studying him like he was a contract with fine print. What did you do before this? Cooked, cleaned, same thing everyone does. Don't be boring. Her voice dropped, taking on an edge. You have scars on your knuckles, old ones, and the way you walk. Military, private security, something that required you to hurt people. The investors shifted uncomfortably. Ryan felt the familiar coldness settle over him, the old armor snapping back into place. I work in a restaurant. Would you like to hear the specials, or should I just let the chef decide everything? Elena's lips curved, not quite a smile. I like him. He doesn't flinch. She turned to the investors. See, this is what I mean about American confidence. Completely unearned but fascinating to watch. One of the investors, older, silver-haired, cleared his throat. Miss Vaughn, perhaps we should focus on the presentation materials. We're eating first. I don't negotiate on an empty stomach. Elena looked back at Ryan. Bring the wine. And tell your chef if the food isn't perfect. I'll make sure everyone in Seattle knows this place serves garbage. Ryan held her gaze for 3 long seconds. Something passed between them, unspoken and sharp. Noted. He walked back to the kitchen. Maria grabbed his arm. Ryan, what the hell? She just threatened to destroy the restaurant if the food isn't good. Yeah, I heard. Ryan moved past her. Marcus, you catch that? Marcus was already plating appetizers, his movements fast and precise. Every word. Tell her if she doesn't like my food, she can shove her Yelp review up her. Marcus. I'm just saying. Marcus slid 3 perfect plates across the pass. Woman's got issues. Ryan carried the plates out himself, setting them down with practiced efficiency. Seared scallops with cauliflower puree and crispy prosciutto. Elena didn't thank him, didn't even look up. She was talking to the investors in rapid Japanese, her voice cold and commanding. Ryan caught enough to understand she was discussing acquisition terms, numbers that made his head spin. He brought the wine, poured it. Elena stopped mid-sentence and picked up her glass, swirling it once before taking a sip. She set it down. Wrong temperature. It should be 65 degrees. This is at least 68. Ryan looked at the bottle. The cellar's climate controlled. It's exactly 65. Are you arguing with me? I'm telling you what I know. Then you're wrong. Elena set down her glass and pushed it toward him. Take it back. Start over. Oi. One of the investors spoke quickly in Japanese. Please, this isn't necessary. But Elena silenced him with a look. Ryan picked up the bottle and walked back to the bar. Maria was watching, her eyes wide. Is she serious? Unfortunately. Ryan pulled a thermometer from the drawer and stuck it in the bottle. 64.8 degrees. Close enough to 65 that it didn't matter. He brought it back out, setting it down in front of Elena without a word. She didn't touch it. The dinner continued like a slow-motion car crash. Elena criticized everything, the plating, the portion sizes, the lighting, even the music playing softly in the background. She spoke to the investors in English and Japanese, switching languages mid-sentence, and every few minutes she'd say something cutting about Ryan, always loud enough for him to hear. Look at him, standing there like he's doing me a favor. You know what his problem is? He thinks he's better than this job. Probably some has-been who couldn't make it in the real world. Ryan refilled water glasses and said nothing. I bet he has a kid, divorced. Child support's killing him, so he's stuck working nights at a restaurant where the owner's too cheap to hire enough staff. Maria looked like she wanted to throw a plate. Ryan shook his head slightly, let it go, and cleared empty appetizer dishes. By 1:30 in the morning, the main courses were finished. The investors looked miserable, barely touching their food despite it being perfect. Elena had eaten everything on her plate while simultaneously tearing apart Ryan's entire existence. She motioned him over. Bill. Ryan pulled out the check presenter, setting it down beside her. Elena opened it, glanced at the total, and pulled out a black credit card without looking at the numbers. You know what's interesting? She said, not looking up. You haven't reacted once tonight. Not when I insulted you. Not when I sent back perfectly good wine. Not when I implied you're a failure. She signed the receipt with a flourish. So either you're completely spineless or you're used to dealing with much worse than me. Ryan picked up the check presenter. Thank you for dining with us tonight. That's it? No witty comeback? No defense of your honor? Would it change anything? Probably not. Elena stood, and the investors scrambled to their feet. She looked at Ryan one more time, her gray eyes sharp and searching. You're hiding something. I always know when people are hiding things. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. And I always find out what it is. Then she walked out, her heels clicking against the hardwood, the investors following like tired shadows. The door closed. Maria let out a breath she'd been holding for the last hour. Ryan, holy shit, are you okay? I'm fine. She was horrible. Maria stopped. Why didn't you say anything? You just stood there and took it. Because he dealt with worse. Because 8 years ago, he'd sat across from warlords and cartel bosses and corrupt politicians, negotiating terms while armed guards stood 3 feet away. Because Elena Vaughn, for all her money and power, was just another rich person throwing her weight around, and he'd learned a long time ago that the less you reacted, the faster they got bored and left. But he didn't say any of that. She's gone. That's what matters. Ryan started clearing the table. Help me close up. I need to get home. They worked in silence, wiping down surfaces and restocking supplies. Marcus came out of the kitchen, his chef's coat stained with sauce and sweat. She leave a review yet? Too soon. Think she'll come back? No. Ryan locked the register. People like that don't come back. They just move on to the next place they can ruin. And he was wrong. 3 days later, Elena Vaughn walked into Cascade Bistro at 11:45 at night. Alone this time. No investors, no entourage. Just her in the same black suit, the same cold expression, moving to the same table like she owned it. Ryan was refilling salt shakers when she walked in. He looked up, surprised, and something must have shown on his face because Elena smiled, actually smiled, like she'd won something. Told you I'd figure it out, she said, sitting down without waiting. Maria approached cautiously. Elena waved her away. I'm not eating. I'm here to talk to him. She pointed at Ryan. Ryan set down the salt shaker and walked over. We're closing soon. I know. That's why I'm here. Sit down. I'm working. Ooh. Sit down. He didn't. Elena's smile faded. 3 days ago, you let me insult you for 2 hours without saying a word. Normal people don't do that, so I looked you up. She pulled out her phone, swiping through something. Ryan Mercer, 32, widower, 1 kid. Before you started working here 5 years ago, there's almost nothing on you. No social media, no credit history before 2019, no college records, nothing. She looked up. So I kept digging, and I found something interesting. Ryan's heart rate didn't change. His expression didn't shift. But inside, something cold and sharp clicked into place. I found a Ryan Mercer who used to work private security, high-level stuff, the kind of jobs that don't get advertised. He spoke 4 languages, had training in tactical operations, worked for people who don't exist on paper. Elena leaned forward, and then 8 years ago, that Ryan Mercer disappeared, just gone, like he never existed. Sounds like a different person. Why? Does it? Elena's eyes narrowed. Because I also found out that Ryan Mercer's wife died 8 years ago, car accident. And 6 months later, he showed up in Seattle working at a restaurant, completely off the grid. Maria was watching from across the room, her face pale. Ryan kept his hands relaxed, his breathing even. Why are you here? Because I'm curious. Elena set her phone down. I meet a lot of people. Most of them are predictable, boring. But you're different. And I want to know why. There's nothing to know. I work here. I go home. That's it. Bullshit. Elena stood up, moving around the table until she was inches from him. You're running from something, or hiding, maybe both, and I'm going to find out what it is. Ryan looked down at her. She was close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and sharp. Close enough that he could see the intelligence burning behind those gray eyes. the kind of relentless curiosity that didn't stop until it got answers. "Leave it alone," he said quietly. "No. I'm asking nicely, and I'm telling you no." Elena stepped back, grabbing her phone. "I always get what I want, always. And right now, I want to know who you really are." She walked out without another word. Maria rushed over. "Ryan, what the hell was that about?" "Nothing." "That wasn't nothing. She was—" "It's fine, Maria, just drop it." But it wasn't fine, because Elena Vaughn wasn't the kind of person who let things go. And now she was digging into a past Ryan had buried for a reason. He finished closing the restaurant on autopilot, his mind already running through contingencies. He'd been careful. Changed his name legally, paid cash for everything, kept Ethan's school records under the radar. But if Elena had the resources, and she did, she might find things he couldn't hide. By the time he got home, it was almost 3 in the morning. Mrs. Chen had left Ethan asleep on Ryan's couch, a blanket tucked around him. Ryan stood in the doorway, watching his son breathe, feeling the familiar weight settle in his chest. Everything he'd done, every lie, every buried identity, every night shift, was for this. To keep Ethan safe, to give him a normal life away from the world Ryan used to live in. But now Elena Vaughn was pulling at threads, and he didn't know if he could stop her before the whole thing unraveled. Elena came back the next night, and the night after that. She never ordered food, never stayed long. She'd walk in, sit at the same table, and watch Ryan work. Sometimes she'd ask questions, where he grew up, what he did on weekends, what languages he spoke. Ryan answered with the bare minimum, giving her nothing real, nothing she could use. But she kept coming back. On the 5th night, she brought her laptop, sat at the table working, barely looking up. Ryan brought her water without being asked. She didn't thank him. "You have a son," she said suddenly, not looking up from her screen. Ryan's hand tightened on the water pitcher. "Yes." "How old?" "8. "Name?" "That's not your business." Elena glanced up, one eyebrow raised. "Protective. Interesting." She went back to her laptop. "What happened to your wife?" "She died, but—" "I know that. I'm asking how." "Car accident. Drunk driver? Medical emergency? Mechanical failure?" Ryan set the pitcher down on her table harder than necessary. Water sloshed over the rim. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm trying to understand you." "Why?" "'Cause you're the first person in 5 years who's looked at me like I'm just another customer. Not someone to fear, not someone to impress. Just a woman asking for wine at the wrong temperature." Elena closed her laptop. "Everyone I meet wants something from me. Money, access, connections. But you? You want me to leave you alone, and that makes you fascinating. I'm not fascinating. I'm tired. Then stop working here. You're smart enough to do something else." "This job pays the bills." "Barely." Elena leaned back. "I looked into this place. Your owner's broke, behind on property taxes. The health department's been circling. You'll be out of a job in 6 months, maybe less." Ryan's jaw tightened. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed made it real. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm going to make you an offer." Elena pulled a business card from her pocket and slid it across the table. "Come work for me." Ryan didn't touch it. "Doing what?" "I need someone to run security for my personal properties. Someone discreet. Someone who knows how to handle problems without making noise." She tapped the card. "I pay 6 times what you're making now. Full benefits. Flexible hours so you can be with your kid." "I'm not interested." "You haven't heard the salary." "Doesn't matter." Elena's expression hardened. "You'd rather work yourself to death at a failing restaurant than take a job that would actually support your son?" Then some. "I'd rather stay away from people like you." The words came out sharper than he intended. Elena's eyes flashed. Anger, or maybe hurt, he couldn't tell. "People like me. People who treat everyone around them like props, who think money buys loyalty." Ryan picked up the card and held it out. "I'm not for sale." Elena stood up slowly. For a moment, she just looked at him, and Ryan saw something behind the cold exterior, something raw and surprised, like she wasn't used to being turned down. "You're going to regret this," she said quietly. "Maybe." She took the card back, sliding it into her pocket. "I don't give up, Ryan. When I want something, I get it. And I want to know what you're hiding. Then you're going to be disappointed. Otzi. Elena walked to the door, then stopped. One more thing. Your son, Ethan, right? She didn't wait for confirmation. He goes to Riverside Elementary. Gets picked up by a neighbor 3 days a week because you're working. Mrs. Chen, nice woman. She makes him dinner on Tuesdays. Ryan's blood went cold. Stay away from him. I'm not threatening you. I'm showing you that I know everything. Elena turned around, her face calm. You can keep pushing me away, but I'll still be here, because I always finish what I start. She left. Ryan stood frozen, his heart pounding. She'd crossed a line. Bringing up Ethan wasn't just curiosity. It was a warning, a flex, and it meant she was more dangerous than he'd thought. Maria came over, her voice worried. Ryan, she knows where your kid goes to school. I know. You need to do something. Call the police, get a restraining order. And tell them what? That a billionaire asked me to work for her and I said no? Ryan shook his head. She didn't threaten Ethan. She just told me she knows where he is. That's not illegal. It's creepy as hell. Yeah, Ryan grabbed his jacket. I'm leaving early. Cover for me. Where are you going? To pick up my son, said. He drove to Mrs. Chen's apartment faster than he should have, his mind racing through scenarios. Elena wasn't just rich and curious. She was obsessive. And obsessive people didn't stop until they got answers or got bored. He needed to figure out which one would happen first. Ethan was still awake when Ryan knocked. Mrs. Chen opened the door, surprised. Ryan, you're early. I know. Sorry, something came up. He looked past her to where Ethan was sitting on the couch, drawing. Hey, buddy, time to go. Ethan looked up, confused. But you said you'd be late. Let's change of plans. Ryan forced a smile. Come on. They drove home in silence. Ethan kept glancing at him, worried, but didn't ask questions. When they got inside, Ryan triple-checked the locks and closed all the blinds. Dad? Ethan set his backpack down. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're acting weird. Ryan knelt down, putting himself at eye level with his son. Ethan had Sarah's eyes, brown and warm, and seeing them always hurt a little. I need to ask you something. If a woman ever approaches you at school or on the street, someone you don't know, what do you do? Ethan frowned. Run away and find a teacher? Exactly. And then you call me, immediately. Did something happen? No, I just want to make sure you're safe. Ryan squeezed his shoulder. You're the most important thing in my life. You know that, right? I know. Ethan hugged him, quick and tight. Love you, Dad. Love you too. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. He sat by the window watching the street, his old instincts kicking back in. He'd walked away from the security world because it was dangerous, because Sarah had begged him to, because he didn't want Ethan growing up around violence. But now violence was finding him anyway, wrapped in expensive suits and cold smiles. His phone buzzed at 4 a.m. Unknown number. He answered. Ryan Mercer. Elena's voice, calm and clear. I'm sorry. For what? For bringing up your son. That was out of line. She paused. I don't usually apologize, but you're not like other people, and I shouldn't have pushed that hard. Then stop digging. More shit. I can't. It's not in my nature. She sighed, and for the first time she sounded tired. I've spent my entire life winning, building, controlling, and the moment I met you, I knew you were something I couldn't control. That's why I keep coming back. I'm not a project. I know, but I can't help it. Another pause. I'll stay away from your son, I promise. But I'm not done with you. She hung up. Ryan stared at the phone, his chest tight. He dealt with a lot of dangerous people in his life, criminals, mercenaries, corrupt officials. But Elena Vaughn was different. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to understand him. And somehow, that was worse. Because understanding meant getting close. And close meant vulnerable. And vulnerable meant Ethan could get hurt. He couldn't let that happen. But as the sun came up over Seattle, casting gray light through the blinds, Ryan had the sinking feeling that it was already too late. Elena had latched onto him like a puzzle she couldn't solve, and she wasn't going to let go until she got her answer. The only question was, what would happen when she did? Elena kept her promise about staying away from Ethan, but she didn't stay away from Ryan. She showed up at the restaurant every other night for the next 2 weeks, always alone, always late. She'd order small plates she barely touched and spend hours on her laptop, occasionally glancing up to watch him work. Ryan tried to ignore her, but it was like trying to ignore a storm brewing on the horizon. You could pretend it wasn't there, but you knew it was coming. The restaurant was dying. Ryan could feel it in the way Marcus started leaving earlier each shift, and how Maria stopped talking about her college plans, in the way the owner, a 60-year-old man named Gerald, who barely came in anymore, sent increasingly desperate emails about cutting costs. They were hemorrhaging money, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time. On a Tuesday night in late November, Gerald called Ryan into his cramped office above the kitchen. The room smelled like cigarettes and desperation. "We're closing," Gerald said without preamble. "End of the month." Ryan had expected it, but hearing it still felt like a punch. "What about severance?" "There is no severance. I'm filing for bankruptcy." Gerald wouldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I know you've got a kid. There's nothing left." Ryan walked out without responding. Maria was waiting by the host stand, her face pale. "I heard," she said. "Yeah. What are you going to do?" "Find something else." Ryan grabbed his jacket. "You should start looking, too." "I already am." She hesitated. "That woman, the billionaire? Didn't she offer you a job?" "Not interested." "Ryan, you need to eat. Your kid needs to eat." "I'll figure it out." But that night, lying in his cramped apartment listening to Ethan breathe in the next room, Ryan wasn't sure how he was going to figure anything out. His savings were thin. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Ethan needed new shoes. The car was making a noise that probably meant expensive repairs. He'd been stupid to turn down Elena's offer. Pride didn't pay bills. His phone buzzed at 11. "Elena, I heard about the restaurant. The offer still stands." Ryan stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "How did you hear?" "I know everything." "That's the point. I'm not working for you." "Then what are you going to do?" He didn't answer. She called 30 seconds later. He let it ring. She called again. On the third call, he picked up. "What?" "Stop being stubborn." Elena's voice was sharp. "You need money." Elena's. "I need someone I can trust." "This isn't complicated." "Trust? You don't even know me." "I know enough. You're loyal, protective. You don't fold under pressure. Those are qualities I need." "You mean qualities you can exploit." "I mean qualities I'm willing to pay for." A pause. "Look, I get it. You don't like me. You think I'm manipulative and cold. You're probably right, but your pride isn't going to feed your son." Ryan closed his eyes. She was right, and they both knew it. What exactly would the job be? "Security for my personal properties. I have 3 houses in Seattle, 1 in Vancouver, and an apartment in San Francisco. You'd rotate between them, make sure no one's breaking in, handle any issues that come up. It's not combat. It's not dangerous. It's boring work that pays well." "Why me? You could hire any security company." "Because security companies have 50 employees and loose lips. I need one person, someone who knows how to be invisible." Her voice softened slightly. "And because you intrigue me, and I don't get intrigued often." "That's not a good reason to hire someone. It's my money. I'll hire people for whatever reason I want." Ryan rubbed his face, exhausted. "If I say yes, you stop digging into my past." "No." "Elena, I'm being honest with you. I could lie and say yes, but I won't. I'm going to keep looking until I understand who you are. But I'll do it quietly, and I'll never use it against you or your son." That's not reassuring. "It's the best you're going to get." She waited. "So? Yes or no?" He thought about Ethan's worn-out shoes, the rent, the car, his son's future slipping away because Ryan was too proud to take help from someone he didn't like. "When do I start?" Elena let out a breath. "Tomorrow. I'll send a car for you at 9. "I have to take Ethan to school first." "The car will pick you up at 9:30. And Ryan, She paused. Thank you. For what? For giving me a chance to prove I'm not completely terrible. She hung up before he could respond. The next morning, Ryan dropped Ethan off at school and watched him disappear through the doors, his backpack bouncing. A black Mercedes pulled up exactly at 9:30, the driver stepping out to open the back door without a word. Ryan climbed in, feeling like he was stepping into a different world. Elena's main house was in Madison Park, a sprawling modern structure made of glass and steel that overlooked Lake Washington. The driver led him through a side entrance into a kitchen bigger than Ryan's entire apartment. Elena was sitting at the island, drinking coffee and reading something on her tablet. She looked different in daylight, younger, less severe, though no less intimidating. You came, she said, setting down the tablet. You're paying me. I came, Ed. Fair enough. She stood, gesturing for him to follow. Let me show you around. The house was excessive. 7 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a home gym, a wine cellar, an office with enough tech to run a small country. Elena moved through it like someone conducting a business meeting, pointing out security panels and access codes, explaining routines and expectations. Ryan absorbed it all, his mind cataloging exits and vulnerabilities out of habit. The most important thing, Elena said, stopping in front of a reinforced door on the second floor, is this room, my personal office. No one goes in except me. Not housekeeping, not staff, not you. Understood? What's in there? Things that would ruin people's lives if they got out. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was talking about the weather. I'm not a good person, Ryan. I've destroyed companies, ended careers, buried competitors. That room contains proof of all of it. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to be in my house. You're going to hear things, see things. I need you to know what you're protecting. She looked at him directly. Can you do that, even if you don't agree with it? Ryan thought about it. He'd protected worse people in his old life. Warlords, arms dealers, politicians who made Elena look like a saint. At least she was being honest about who she was. As long as it doesn't involve kids or trafficking, I can do my job. It doesn't. I have lines I don't cross. Elena pulled out her phone. Your salary gets deposited every 2 weeks. Health insurance starts immediately. If you need anything, uniforms, equipment, let me know. I don't need anything. You will. She walked past him toward the stairs. Oh, and Ryan, I'm having dinner with some investors here on Friday. I'll need you present, visible but quiet. Can you do that? What kind of investors? The kind who need to see that I have serious people working for me. She glanced back. Wear something nice. The first week was easier than Ryan expected. He spent his days rotating between Elena's properties, checking locks and cameras, occasionally dealing with overzealous fans or reporters who showed up looking for a story. The work was boring, which was exactly what he needed. No drama, no danger, just walking through empty houses and making sure everything was secure. But Friday came, and with it, the dinner. Ryan showed up at 6 wearing the only suit he owned, 10 years old, a little tight in the shoulders, but clean. Elena answered the door herself, dressed in a dark blue dress that probably cost more than his car. She looked him up and down, her expression unreadable. That suit is terrible. It's all I have. Next time, I'm buying you new clothes. She stepped aside. Come in. They'll be here in 20 minutes. The dining room had been transformed. Crystal glasses, expensive china, candles that cast soft light across the table. Ryan stood near the wall, hands clasped in front of him, watching as Elena moved around the room making final adjustments. Nervous? He asked. Should I be? You tell me. You're the one who needs to impress people. Elena straightened a fork that didn't need straightening. These investors are from Singapore. They're considering a major acquisition of one of my subsidiaries. If this goes well, I'll clear $2 billion in profit. If it goes badly, I'll lose control of my own company. High stakes. Always. She looked at him. That's why you're here. They need to see I'm serious, organized, protected. I'm just set dressing. You're more than that, but yes, tonight you're set dressing. The doorbell rang. Elena took a breath, and for just a second, Ryan saw the mask slip, a flicker of anxiety, quickly buried. Showtime. The investors were three men in their 50s, impeccably dressed and stone-faced. Elena greeted them in what sounded like fluent Mandarin, gesturing them toward the dining room. Ryan stayed in the background, watching. Dinner was a performance. Elena was sharp, charming, ruthless when she needed to be. She parried questions, deflected concerns, and painted a picture of a company so profitable it would be stupid not to invest. The men listened, occasionally glancing at Ryan like they were trying to figure out if he was security or something else. Halfway through the meal, one of them, the oldest, with silver hair and a scar above his left eyebrow, spoke in English. "Miss Vaughn, you have an interesting choice in security." Elena smiled. "Ryan's very good at what he does. He looks military, or perhaps something less official. Does it matter? It suggests you expect trouble." The man cut his steak with surgical precision. "Investors don't like trouble. Investors like money. I'm offering you both." Elena's smile never wavered. "But if you're concerned about my personal security choices, perhaps you're not the right partners for this deal." But the room went quiet. Ryan tensed, reading the shift in energy. The other two investors looked uncomfortable, but the silver-haired man just smiled. "You have steel, Miss Vaughn. I respect that." He raised his glass. "To profitable partnerships." Elena raised hers. "To profit." The rest of the dinner passed without incident. By 10, the investors were gone, and Elena was kicking off her heels in the kitchen, looking exhausted. "You did good," Ryan said. "I always do good. That's the problem." She poured herself a glass of wine. "They're going to lowball me, probably by 30%, and I'm going to have to decide if I want to walk away or take the insult. What would you do if it were me?" "I'd tell you to walk. But I'm not you. I need the capital." She took a long drink. "This business, it's cannibalistic. You eat or get eaten. There's no middle ground." "Sounds exhausting." "Chance." "It is." Elena leaned against the counter, studying him. "Do you ever miss it, your old life?" "No." "Liar." Ryan met her eyes. "What do you want me to say? That I miss the adrenaline? The danger?" "I don't. I got out for a reason." "But you were good at it, I can tell. The way you move, the way you watch everyone in a room. You were more than just security." I did what I had to do." "Which was?" "None of your business." Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "One of these days, you're going to trust me." "Don't count on it. I always count on things other people say are impossible. That's how I win." She finished her wine and walked upstairs without another word. Ryan locked up the house and drove home, his mind restless. Elena was getting under his skin, and he didn't like it. She was smart, driven, and more vulnerable than she wanted anyone to see. It would be easy to start caring about her, and that was dangerous. He couldn't afford dangerous. But 2 weeks later, dangerous found him anyway. It was a Thursday night, and Ryan was doing a routine check of Elena's Vancouver property when his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, cautious. "Ryan Mercer?" A man's voice, deep and controlled. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you used to do, and someone who knows you're working for Elena Vaughn now." A pause. "We need to meet." "Not interested." "I think you are. Because if you don't meet me, I'm going to make sure everyone knows who you really are, including your employer and your son." Ryan's hand tightened on the phone. "Say that again." "You heard me. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. There's a bar on Capitol Hill called the Underground. Come alone." The line went dead. Ryan stood in the empty house, his pulse pounding. Someone from his past had found him. Someone who knew enough to be dangerous. He called Elena. She picked up on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "How do you know something's wrong?" "You never call me unless there's a problem. Talk," Ryan explained. Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know who it is?" "No, but they know about my old work, and they know about Ethan." "Then you're not going alone." Her voice was firm. "I'm coming with you. This isn't your problem." "You work for me. That makes it my problem." She paused. "Besides, I've been waiting for something like this. Your past was always going to catch up. At least now we can deal with it head on." Ryan wanted to argue, but she was right. Couldn't handle this alone, not with Ethan in the crossfire. Fine. But you do exactly what I say. We'll see about that. The next night, Ryan picked up Elena at her house. She was dressed down, jeans, a black jacket, no makeup. She looked younger, less severe and more human than he'd ever seen her. "You look different," he said. "I look normal. There's a difference." She climbed into the passenger seat. "Are you armed?" "No." "Should you be?" "Probably. But if I pull a gun in a bar, people die. I'd rather avoid that." Comforting. They drove to Capitol Hill in silence. The Underground was a dive bar tucked into a basement, the kind of place where people went to disappear. Ryan scanned the room as they walked in. 20 people, mostly drunk. One bartender who looked like he'd seen everything. In the back corner, sitting alone at a table, was a man in his 40s with a shaved head and a scar running down his jaw. Ryan recognized him immediately. Marcus Vela, former operative for a private military contractor called Obsidian Group. They'd worked together once, 6 years ago, on a job in Bogota that had gone sideways fast. Vela had disappeared after that, and Ryan had assumed he was either dead or smart enough to stay gone. Apparently he was neither. Ryan walked over, Elena following close behind. Vela looked up, his expression unreadable. "Mercer, been a long time." "Not long enough." Ryan sat down across from him. "What do you want?" "Straight to the point. I like that." Vela's eyes shifted to Elena. "And you brought your boss. How cute." "Careful," Elena said coldly. "I'm not in the mood for whatever game you're playing." Vela smiled. "I'm not playing a game. I'm offering a business opportunity. By threatening my son? I needed your attention. Now I have it." Vela leaned back. "Here's the situation. I've got a client who needs a high-value extraction. Someone important being held against their will. It's a two-man job, and I need someone I can trust. I'm out of that life." "I know. But you're also broke, working security for a billionaire who's bleeding money into bad investments." He glanced at Elena. "No offense. Plenty taken," Elena said flatly. "This job pays $2 million, half up front, half on completion. It's clean, it's simple, and it's one night of work." Vela slid a folder across the table. "All the details are in there. You have 48 hours to decide." Ryan didn't touch the folder. "And if I say no? Then I start making calls. Your old employers would love to know where you are. So would a few governments." Vela stood. "Think about it, Mercer. Your kid deserves better than a cramped apartment and secondhand shoes." He walked out, leaving the folder on the table. Elena picked it up, flipping through the pages. Her expression darkened. "This is a kidnapping." "Probably. You can't do this." "I know." "Then why are you hesitating?" Ryan looked at her. "Because he's right. Ethan deserves better, and I don't know how to give it to him without doing things I swore I'd never do again." Elena closed the folder, her jaw tight. "You're not doing this. I won't let you. It's not your choice." "The hell it isn't. You work for me, and I don't employ criminals. You destroy people's lives for profit. Don't pretend you have the moral high ground." The words came out harsher than he intended. Elena's face flushed, anger flashing in her eyes. "I've never killed anyone. I've never kidnapped anyone. What I do is legal, even if it's ruthless. What he's asking you to do isn't." "What? You think I don't know that?" Ryan stood, shoving the folder into his jacket. "I'm not going to do it, but I need to figure out how to deal with Vela before he makes good on his threats." Elena stood too, stepping close. "Then let me help." "How?" "I have resources, lawyers, security, money. Whatever you need to bury this guy, I'll provide it." "Why? Why do you care?" "I am a small Mossad." "Because you're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank account. And because—" She stopped, her voice catching. "Because I don't have a lot of people I trust, and I'm starting to trust you." Ryan stared at her, caught off guard by the raw honesty in her voice. For a moment, the cold billionaire exterior cracked, and he saw someone lonely, scared, and trying desperately to hold everything together. "Okay," he said quietly. "We'll figure this out. Together." They left the bar and drove back to her house. Elena poured them both whiskey, and they sat in her living room going through Vela's folder page by page. The target was a tech executive being held by a rival company overseas. The extraction would require crossing international borders, bribing officials, and probably shooting people. It was exactly the kind of job Ryan had walked away from. "We need leverage on Vela," Elena said, sipping her whiskey. "Something that makes him back off. He's ex-military contractor. Leverage means dirt, and dirt means digging into places that'll get us killed. Then we don't dig, we buy him off." Ryan shook his head. "He doesn't need money, he needs me." "Then give him something else, someone else." "Like who?" Elena's eyes narrowed. "Me." "Absolutely not. Hear me out. He wants a two-man job. What if I offer him my resources instead? Money, tech, connections, everything he needs to do the job without you. You're not a field operative." "No, but I can hire people who are. And if Vela thinks he's getting something better than you, he might take the deal." It was a terrible idea, but Ryan was running out of options. "And if he says no, then we go to the FBI. Turn him in, let them handle it. Which puts a target on both of us." "I know." Elena finished her whiskey. "But at least we'd go down fighting." Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something he hadn't expected. Courage. Not the reckless kind, but the kind that came from knowing the stakes and refusing to back down. "You're tougher than you look," he said. "I have to be. The world doesn't reward weakness." She set down her glass. "So, are we doing this?" Ryan thought about Ethan, about the life he'd built, about the man he'd been trying to become. And then he thought about Marcus Vela, waiting for an answer, ready to destroy everything if he didn't get what he wanted. "Yeah," Ryan said. "We're doing this." Elena smiled, small, genuine, and tinged with fear. "Good. Because I've always wanted to negotiate with a criminal. Just don't get yourself killed." "Same to you." They spent the rest of the night planning, and for the first time since Sarah died, Ryan felt like he wasn't alone. It was terrifying, but it was also something close to hope. The meeting with Vela was set for Sunday afternoon at a warehouse in Georgetown, the kind of industrial area where shipping containers rusted and nobody asked questions. Ryan drove, Elena in the passenger seat wearing sunglasses and looking like she was heading to a funeral instead of a negotiation with a man who could kill them both without breaking a sweat. "You don't have to do this," Ryan said for the third time. "We've established that I do." Elena checked her phone. "I transferred $500,000 to an escrow account. If Vela agrees to our terms, he gets access immediately. If not, the money disappears. You're bribing him with $500,000. I'm incentivizing cooperation. There's a difference." She looked at him. "Are you sure he'll take it?" "No, but it's better than nothing." They pulled up to the warehouse 20 minutes early. Ryan scanned the perimeter, 2 entrances, no visible security, several cars parked nearby that could belong to anyone. He didn't like it, but there wasn't another option. "Stay in the car until I signal you," he said. "What's the signal?" "I'll wave. If I don't wave, drive away and call the police." "And leave you here to die?" "No." "Elena." "I'm not debating this." She opened the door and stepped out before he could stop her. "We're in this together. That means I don't run." Ryan wanted to argue, but Vela was already walking toward them from the warehouse entrance. He looked the same as he had 2 nights ago. Shaved head, scar, expression that gave away nothing. Behind him were 2 men Ryan didn't recognize, both armed with pistols visible under their jackets. "Mercer, you brought friends." Vela stopped 10 feet away, his eyes on Elena. "And you brought your boss. Interesting choice." "She has a proposal," Ryan said. "I'm sure she does." Vela crossed his arms. "Let's hear it." Elena stepped forward, and Ryan's instinct screamed at him to pull her back. But she walked right up to Vela like she was negotiating a boardroom deal, her voice cold and steady. "Ryan's not taking your job, but I'm offering you something better." Vela raised an eyebrow. "Better than the best field operative I've ever worked with?" "Yes. I'll fund your operation completely. Equipment, bribes, transportation, everything you need. Plus $500,000 up front and another $500,000 when it's done. You find your own people, do the job however you want, and Ryan stays out of it." "And why would you do that?" Because he works for me now. And I protect my investments. Jewel on Washington. Vela laughed, short and humorless. You think this is about money? It's about trust. I don't know you. I don't trust you. And I sure as hell don't trust anyone stupid enough to throw $1 million at a problem without understanding what they're buying. I understand perfectly. You're trying to leverage Ryan because you think he's desperate, but he's not desperate enough to destroy the life he's built. Elena pulled out her phone, showing him something on the screen. That's the escrow account. The money's real, and it's yours if you walk away. Vela glanced at the phone, then back at Elena. You've got guts. I'll give you that. He looked at Ryan. She always this reckless? Pretty much. And you let her negotiate with armed criminals? I don't let her do anything. She does what she wants. Vela studied them both, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to his men and said something in Spanish too quick for Ryan to catch. The two men lowered their hands, stepping back slightly. Here's the problem, Vela said, turning back. You're right. I need Mercer because I trust him. But you're offering me enough money to hire 3 guys just as good. Maybe better. He rubbed his jaw. So I'm going to make you a counter-offer at... I'm listening, Elena said. I take your $1 million, and Mercer comes with me for one job, just one. After that, we're square. No more threats, no more calls. He's out for good. No, Elena said immediately. Then no deal. Vela shrugged. I don't need your money that badly, but I do need someone I can rely on, and that's Mercer. So it's both or nothing. Ryan felt the trap closing. Vela had outmaneuvered them, and they both knew it. Either Ryan took the job or Vela walked away and made good on his threats. There was no third option. Give us a minute, Ryan said. Vela gestured toward the car. Take your time, but decide fast. I've got other people to talk to. Ryan and Elena walked back to the car, out of earshot. Elena was shaking, not from fear, but from anger. He's bluffing. He has to be. He's not. I know him. If we don't take this deal, he'll burn everything down just to prove a point. Then we go to the police, the FBI, whoever handles this kind of thing, and tell them what? That a guy I used to work with offered me a job? They'll laugh us out of the building. Ryan leaned against the car. There's no legal way out of this. So you're just going to do it? Risk your life for some criminal's extraction job? If it means keeping Ethan safe, yes. Elena grabbed his arm, her grip tight. And what happens if you die? What happens to your son then? He's got Mrs. Chen. She'll take care of him. That's not good enough. Elena's voice cracked. You can't throw your life away like this. I'm not throwing it away. I'm protecting it. There's a difference. They stood there, the cold Seattle air biting through their jackets, and Ryan saw something shift in Elena's expression. Fear, but also determination. She let go of his arm and took a breath. If you're doing this, then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You said we're in this together. That means I don't sit on the sidelines while you risk everything. She straightened. I'll fund the operation, provide logistics, handle communications. You do the field work. We split the risk. Us. Elena, this isn't a business deal. People are going to shoot at us. Then teach me not to get shot. Ryan stared at her, incredulous. You're serious? Completely. She walked back toward Vela before Ryan could stop her. We accept your terms with one modification. I'm coming with Ryan. Full operational support, non-negotiable. Vela blinked, surprised for the first time since they'd arrived. You want to come on an armed extraction? Yes. Have you ever fired a gun? No. Wow. Been in combat? No. Done anything remotely dangerous in your entire pampered life? I've survived 12 years in the tech industry. That's more dangerous than you think. Elena crossed her arms. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you how this works. Ryan and I are a package deal. You want him. You get me too. Vela looked at Ryan. Is she always this insane? This is actually pretty mild. Oh, unbelievable. Vela shook his head, but there was something like respect in his eyes. Fine. You can come. But the first time you slow us down or put the operation at risk, I'm leaving you behind. Understood? Understood. Good. Vela pulled out a phone and tossed it to Ryan. Burner, I'll contact you in 48 hours with details. Memorize everything, then destroy it. And Mercer? He paused. Don't make me regret this. Peace. He walked back into the warehouse, his men following. Ryan and Elena stood alone in the parking lot, the reality of what they'd just agreed to settling over them like a weight. We're going to die, Ryan said quietly. Probably. Elena got into the car. But at least we'll die together. Ryan didn't know if that was supposed to be comforting. The next 2 days were a blur. Ryan pulled Ethan out of school early, telling Mrs. Chen he was taking his son on a last-minute trip to visit family in California. She didn't question it. Ryan had always been private about his life, and Ethan was thrilled at the idea of missing school. They spent a day at the Seattle Aquarium, eating overpriced fish and chips and pretending everything was normal. But at night, after Ethan fell asleep, Ryan lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. He'd walked away from field work for a reason. The violence, the moral compromises, the constant edge of death, it had nearly destroyed him once, and now he was walking back into it, dragging Elena with him. On the second night, the burner phone buzzed. A single text with coordinates and a time. Wednesday, midnight, Port of Tacoma. Ryan forwarded the information to Elena, then smashed the phone and threw it in the dumpster behind his building. He spent the next day getting ready, checking old gear he'd kept hidden in a storage unit, running through scenarios, trying to remember skills he'd spent 8 years trying to forget. Elena showed up at his apartment Tuesday night carrying a duffel bag. She looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, makeup gone. She'd never looked more human. I brought supplies, she said, dropping the bag on his couch. Body armor, first aid, comm units, and this. She pulled out a Glock 19, checking the chamber with surprising competence. I've been practicing at a range the last 2 days. 2 days of practice doesn't make you qualified for combat. It makes me less useless than I was 3 days ago. She set the gun down. I also hired a private investigator to dig into Vela. He's ex-Obsidian Group, like you said, but he's got debts, gambling problem, owes money to some very bad people. This job is probably his last chance to stay alive, which makes him desperate and dangerous. Yes, but it also means he needs this to work as much as we do. Elena sat down, her shoulders sagging. I'm scared, Ryan. Good. Fear keeps you alive. I mean really scared, like I've never done anything like this before, scared. I've crushed companies, buried competitors, destroyed careers, but I've never pointed a gun at another human being. She looked at him. How do you do it? How do you live with that? Ryan thought about the question. He'd asked himself the same thing 1,000 times. You don't. Not really. You just keep moving forward and hope eventually you forget. He sat down next to her. But you don't have to do this. I can still go alone. No. Elena's voice was firm. I told you, we're in this together. Why? What do I mean to you? We barely know each other. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. When I was building my company, I stepped on everyone. I crushed people who got in my way. I fired employees without warning. I destroyed competitors without remorse. And I told myself it was worth it because I was building something important, something that mattered. She looked at her hands. But somewhere along the way, I realized I'd built an empire and lost everything else. No friends, no family, just employees who fear me and competitors who hate me. And then you walked into my life. And for the first time in years, someone treated me like I was just a person, not a bank account, not a threat, just Elena. Ryan didn't know what to say. Elena wiped at her eyes quickly, angry at herself for showing weakness. So that's why I'm coming. Because you're the first real thing I've had in a decade, and I'm not losing that. I'm not that special, Elena. You are to me. They sat in silence, and Ryan felt something shift between them, something fragile and dangerous and maybe worth protecting. He reached over and took her hand. She squeezed back hard. If we survive this, he said, remind me to tell you you're completely insane. Deal. Wednesday came too fast. Ryan dropped Ethan off at Mrs. Chen's with a goodbye that felt too final, hugging his son tight and memorizing the feel of him. Ethan pulled back, confused. Dad, you're acting weird again. Just going to force a smile. Be good for Mrs. Chen. I'm always good. You're never good, but try anyway. Well, he drove away before Ethan could see his face, before he could change his mind and call the whole thing off. Elena was waiting at her house, dressed in black tactical gear that looked ridiculous and somehow right at the same time. Ready? She asked. No. You? Not even close. They drove to Tacoma in silence, the city lights fading behind them as they approached the industrial port. Ryan parked near the coordinates Vela had sent, a shipping yard filled with containers stacked like metal mountains. Vela was already there, along with 4 other men Ryan didn't recognize. All of them were armed. You came, Vela said, and you brought your billionaire. How touching. What's the job? Ryan asked. Vela pulled out a tablet showing them a photo of a man in his 40s with graying hair and terrified eyes. Damon Cross, tech executive. His company, Vanguard Systems, was developing some proprietary AI that could destabilize entire markets. A rival company, Novatech, kidnapped him 2 weeks ago and has been holding him at a facility outside Vancouver. We're extracting him tonight. Why us? Why not the police? Because Cross doesn't want the police. He wants discretion, and he's paying $7 million for it. $2 million goes to me. The rest gets split between everyone here. Vela looked at them. Questions? How many guards? Ryan asked. 6, maybe 8. The facility is a converted warehouse, minimal security. We go in fast, grab Cross, and get out before anyone knows we're there. And if they know we're there? Then we shoot our way out. Vela handed Ryan an earpiece and a tactical vest. Put these on. We leave in 10 minutes. Ryan and Elena geared up, strapping on vests that were too heavy and too real. Elena fumbled with her comm unit, and Ryan helped her adjust it, his hands steady even though his heart was pounding. If shooting starts, he said quietly, you stay behind me. Understand? Ryan, I'm not negotiating. You stay behind me, and you do exactly what I say. Otherwise, you're going to get killed. Elena nodded, her face pale. Okay. They climbed into a van with Vela and his team, driving north toward the Canadian border. Ryan's mind was spinning through scenarios, cataloging weaknesses and exit routes. Elena sat next to him, gripping her Glock like it might save her life. Maybe it would. They crossed the border using fake IDs that Vela had somehow procured, slipping past a checkpoint in the middle of the night without issue. 40 minutes later, they arrived at the facility, a squat concrete building surrounded by chain-link fence, isolated in the middle of nowhere. Vela killed the headlights, and they approached on foot. Ryan moved on instinct, his old training taking over. He motioned for Elena to stay low, and she did, following his movements exactly. Vela's team spread out, covering different angles. 2 guards at the front entrance, one of Vela's men whispered into the comm. Side door looks clear. We go through the side, Vela said. Mercer, you're with me. Everyone else, cover our 6. They moved toward the side entrance, and Ryan felt the familiar coldness settle over him, the combat mindset that turned fear into focus. He checked the door, locked. Vela pulled out a small device and bypassed it in seconds. The door opened silently. Inside was dark, lit only by emergency lighting. Ryan led the way, his eyes adjusting quickly. They moved through a hallway lined with empty offices, heading toward the sound of voices deeper in the building. Elena was right behind him, her breathing too loud in the silence. They reached a large room, some kind of warehouse floor with shipping crates stacked high. In the center, tied to a chair, was Damon Cross. He looked worse than his photo, bruised, exhausted, barely conscious. 3 men stood around him, armed with rifles. Vela signaled the team. They moved in fast. Everything went to hell immediately. One of the guards spotted them and shouted, raising his rifle. Ryan moved without thinking, closing the distance and disarming him in 3 brutal motions. The rifle clattered to the ground. Another guard fired, the shot echoing through the warehouse. Ryan shoved Elena behind a crate, returning fire with precision that felt like muscle memory. Vela's team engaged the remaining guards, and the room erupted into chaos. Gunfire, shouting, the smell of cordite thick in the air. Ryan moved through it like a ghost, taking down targets with efficiency that terrified him. He'd forgotten how good he was at this, how natural it felt. A guard came around the corner, gun raised. Ryan shot him twice in the chest before he could fire. The man went down hard. "Elena, stay down!" Ryan shouted. But Elena wasn't staying down. She was moving toward Cross, gun in hand, her face set in grim determination. A guard appeared behind her, raising his weapon. Ryan's heart stopped. He fired without aiming, pure instinct. The guard dropped. "Elena, get back!" Os. Mishati pass. She cut Cross's restraints, pulling him to his feet. The man could barely stand. Elena half carried him toward the exit, and Ryan provided cover, firing at anything that moved. Vela's team was already pulling back, 2 of his men wounded but mobile. They made it to the van, piling in as bullets tore through the metal. Vela hit the gas, and they tore away from the facility, tires screaming on gravel. Ryan checked Elena. She was shaking, covered in someone else's blood, but alive. "You okay?" "Bullshit. What? Pa?" "No." Her voice was thin. "But I'm not dead." Good enough. They drove for an hour in tense silence, crossing back into the U.S. without incident. Vela pulled over at a rest stop, and everyone got out, breathing hard and checking wounds. Damon Cross was crying, mumbling thank you over and over. Vela turned to Ryan. "We're square. You did good. We're never doing this again, Chowe. I know." Vela handed him a phone. "Your payment will be in your account by morning. 2 million, like I promised." He looked at Elena. "You've got fire, lady. I'll give you that." Elena didn't respond. She walked to the edge of the parking lot and threw up. Ryan followed her, pulling her hair back as she emptied her stomach. When she was done, she leaned against him, exhausted. "I killed someone," she whispered. "No, I killed them. You saved Cross. I pointed my gun at a human being and pulled the trigger." "Did you?" Elena looked at him confused. I don't know. Everything happened so fast." "Then you don't know. And you never will. Let it stay that way." Ryan helped her stand. "Come on, let's go home." They drove back to Seattle in Elena's car, leaving the van and Vela behind. The sun was coming up by the time they reached the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt wrong after everything they'd just done. Ryan dropped Elena off at her house. She sat in the passenger seat for a long moment, not moving. "I don't know how you lived like this," she said finally. "I didn't. I survived it. There's a difference." "Is there?" Ryan didn't have an answer. Elena got out of the car, and he watched her walk to her door, shoulders slumped, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. He drove home and picked up Ethan from Mrs. Chen's, hugging his son so tight the boy complained. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. And Ryan didn't know how to reconcile the man he'd been that night with the father he was trying to be. But as he tucked Ethan into bed and watched him fall asleep, Ryan made himself a promise. Whatever happened next, he was done with that life. Done with violence, done with men like Vela and jobs like the one they'd just pulled off. He was going to be better. For Ethan, for Elena, for himself. Even if he had no idea how. The money hit Ryan's account 3 days later, exactly as Vela promised. $2 million. Ryan stared at the number on his phone screen, feeling nothing except a hollow ache in his chest. Blood money. That's what Sarah would have called it. Money earned by doing the exact thing he'd sworn to leave behind. He transferred half of it into a trust fund for Ethan, then sat at his kitchen table trying to figure out what to do with the rest. Pay off debts, sure. Fix the car. Buy Ethan new shoes and clothes that actually fit. But after that, the money felt poisonous, like it would contaminate everything it touched. Elena hadn't called since that night. Ryan had texted her once, "You okay?" and gotten back a single word. No. He'd left it alone after that, figuring she needed space to process what they'd done. He needed space too. But space didn't help. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the guard he'd shot. Saw Elena's face covered in blood. Heard the gunfire echoing through that warehouse. On the 4th day, Elena showed up at his apartment unannounced. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and a jacket that swallowed her whole. Her eyes were red-rimmed like she'd been crying for days. Can I come in? She asked. Ryan stepped aside. She walked past him into the small living room, looking around like she'd never seen the place before. Ethan was at school, so they were alone. I can't sleep, Elena said without preamble. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that warehouse. I keep seeing that man's face, the one who was behind me, the one you... She stopped, her voice breaking. I can't do this. I can't live like this. Ryan didn't know what to say. He'd been through this before, years ago, after his first kill. The nightmares, the guilt, the feeling that you'd crossed a line you could never uncross. Eventually it faded, but it never disappeared. Not completely. It gets easier, he said finally. Does it? Or do you just get numb? Both, probably. Elena laughed, bitter and sharp. That's comforting. She sank onto his couch, pulling her knees to her chest. I thought I was strong. I built a company from nothing. I destroyed competitors. I made billion-dollar decisions without flinching. But this broke me. Ryan sat down next to her, keeping distance between them. You're not broken. You're human. I don't feel human. I feel like a monster. You're not. You saved a man's life. That counts for something. Does it? We kidnapped someone at gunpoint. We shot people. We broke about 50 laws. Elena looked at him. How do you live with it? How do you wake up every day and pretend you're a good person? I don't pretend. I just try to be better than I was yesterday. Ryan rubbed his face. Look, what we did was wrong. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But Vela would have killed Cross if we hadn't gotten him out. So yeah, we broke laws. We hurt people. But we also saved someone who didn't deserve to die. That has to mean something. Elena was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small. I don't want to be alone right now. You're not alone. I'm right here. Mats. Can I stay? Just for a while? Ryan hesitated. Having Elena in his apartment felt dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with guns or violence. But she looked so lost, so unlike the cold billionaire who'd walked into his restaurant months ago that he couldn't say no. Yeah, you can stay. They sat in silence for hours, not talking, just existing in the same space. Eventually, Elena fell asleep on his couch, curled up like a child. Ryan covered her with a blanket and went to pick up Ethan from school. His son climbed into the car, chattering about a science project, something about volcanoes and baking soda. Ryan listened with half his attention, the other half worrying about the woman currently unconscious in his living room. When they got home, Ethan stopped in the doorway, staring at Elena. Who's that? A friend. She's having a rough day. Why is she sleeping on our couch? Because she needed somewhere safe to sleep. Ryan guided Ethan toward his room. Come on, let's do your homework. Is she your girlfriend? What? No. Mrs. Chen says you need a girlfriend. She says you're too lonely. Mrs. Chen talks too much. Ethan grinned. She's pretty, even though she looks like she hasn't showered. Ethan, what? I'm just saying. They did homework in Ethan's room, and Ryan made dinner while his son played video games. Elena woke up around 6, disoriented and embarrassed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to crash here. It's fine. You hungry? I don't know, maybe. Ryan made spaghetti because it was the only thing he knew how to cook without burning. Elena sat at the small kitchen table, watching him work. Ethan emerged from his room, took one look at Elena, and walked right up to her. Hi, I'm Ethan. Are you my dad's girlfriend? Elena blinked. No, I'm his employer. That's a fancy word for boss. Yes, that's exactly what it means. You don't look like a boss. You look sad. Ryan grabbed Ethan's shoulder. Buddy, why don't you go set the table? I'm just being honest. You always say honesty's important. It is, but so is tact. Ethan shrugged and grabbed plates. Elena watched him go, something unreadable in her expression. He's sweet, she said. He's a handful. He looks like you. Same eyes. He's got his mom's stubbornness, though. That's all, Sarah. Elena was quiet. They ate dinner together, Ethan filling the silence with stories about school and friends, and a kid named Marcus, who apparently ate glue on a dare. It was normal and domestic and completely surreal given everything that had happened. After dinner, Elena helped clean up while Ryan put Ethan to bed. When he came back out, she was standing by the window, looking at the Seattle skyline in the distance. "I want to give you more money," she said. "I don't need more money." "Not for you, for Ethan, college fund, trust fund, whatever he needs. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and you risked your life for me. Let me do this. Elena, please." She turns to face him. "I need to do something good, something that isn't about destroying competitors or making more money. Let me help your son." Ryan wanted to say no, pride maybe, or fear that accepting would mean owing her something he couldn't repay. But then he thought about Ethan's future, about college and opportunities, and everything Ryan couldn't provide on his own. "Okay," he said quietly, "but nothing excessive, just enough to make sure he's taken care of. Deal." Elena left an hour later looking less broken than when she'd arrived. Ryan stood in his doorway watching her car disappear down the street, feeling like something fundamental had shifted between them. She wasn't just his employer anymore. She was something else, something he couldn't quite name. The nightmare started that night. Ryan dreamed of the warehouse, of gunfire and blood in Elena's face when she realized she might die. He woke up at 3 in the morning, sweating and disoriented, and couldn't fall back asleep. It was the same the next night, and the night after that. By the end of the week, he was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. Elena called him on Friday, her voice carefully neutral. "We need to talk. Come to my house tonight." "Is something wrong?" Just come." Ryan dropped Ethan off at Mrs. Chen's and drove to Madison Park. Elena answered the door in jeans and a sweater, looking more put together than the last time he'd seen her. She led him to her living room where 2 men in suits were waiting. "Ryan, this is David Chen and Michael Torres, their attorneys." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" "Sit down, please." He sat. The attorneys exchanged glances, and David spoke first. "Mr. Mercer, we're here because Miss Vaughn has received some concerning information. 3 days ago, Novatech, the company that was holding Damon Cross, filed a lawsuit against Apex Dynamics. They're claiming Miss Vaughn orchestrated an illegal extraction and is harboring a fugitive." "That's insane," Ryan said. "Cross was kidnapped. We rescued him." "Novatech is claiming Cross was there voluntarily. They're saying he was consulting for them and that Miss Vaughn used criminal means to interfere with their business." Michael pulled out a folder. "They have security footage of the extraction, and they have witness testimony from the guards you fought. The guards who were holding a man prisoner. The guards who are now claiming they were protecting company property from armed intruders." David leaned forward. "This is bad, Mr. Mercer. If this goes to trial, both of you could face serious charges. Kidnapping, assault, weapons violations. We're talking years in prison." Ryan looked at Elena. She was pale but composed, her hands folded in her lap. "Why didn't you tell me this before bringing lawyers?" Because I needed to understand the situation first, and because I wanted to protect you." She nodded to the attorneys. "Give us a minute." They left. Elena stood, pacing. "Novatech isn't just suing me. They're trying to destroy me. The lawsuit is a smokescreen. What they really want is to force me into a merger or sell off my company at a fraction of what it's worth. They're using what happened with Cross as leverage. So what do we do?" "We fight, but it's going to be ugly. They're going to dig into your past, into my business practices, into everything." She stopped pacing. "And they're going to come after Ethan." Ryan stood, his hands clenched. "What?" "They'll try to prove you're an unfit parent, use your criminal past to get custody taken away. It's scorched earth, Ryan. They'll burn everything to win." "Then we give them what they want. I'll confess. Say I acted alone. You had nothing to do with it." "That won't work. They have footage of me at the extraction. They know I was involved." Elena's voice was steady, but her eyes were scared. "We're in this together, remember?" Then we disappear. "Take Ethan and run. Start over somewhere they can't find us." And live the rest of your life looking over your shoulder? That's not a life. Not for you or your son. Ryan wanted to punch something. Instead, he sat down, his mind racing through options that all led to the same conclusion. They were trapped. There has to be a way out. There is, but you're not going to like it. Elena sat next to him. We go public. Tell the truth about Cross, about Novatech, about everything. Turn this into a media circus before they can control the narrative. That'll destroy your reputation. I don't care about my reputation anymore. I care about protecting you and Ethan. She took his hand. I got you into this. Let me get you out. And if it doesn't work, then we both go to prison, and at least we tried. Man. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman he'd first met months ago in the restaurant. Cold, calculating, willing to do whatever it took to win. But now that ruthlessness was directed at protecting him instead of destroying competitors. It was terrifying and beautiful and completely insane. Okay, he said. We do it your way. Elena called the attorneys back in. They spent the next 3 hours planning a strategy. Press conferences, media leaks, controlled interviews. By midnight, they had a plan. It was risky and desperate, but it was something. Ryan drove home exhausted, his mind spinning. When he got to his apartment, there was a man sitting on the steps outside. Ryan's hand went to the gun he'd started carrying again, but the man raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. Easy, Mercer. I'm just here to talk. Ryan recognized him. Thomas Crane, Novatech's CEO. A man in his 50s with silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. Get off my property. This is a public sidewalk. Technically, I can sit here as long as I want. Crane stood slowly. But I'll keep this brief. Drop the lawsuit, convince Elena Vaughn to back off, and I'll make this all go away. No charges, no custody battles, no prison. And if we don't, then I destroy you. Both of you. I'll make sure your son grows up knowing his father is a criminal. I'll ruin Elena's company and drag her name through the mud. And I'll sleep perfectly fine doing it. Crane stepped closer. You seem like a smart man, Mr. Mercer. So make the smart choice. Walk away. Or what? You'll sue me? You're already doing that. School me. No, I'll do worse. I'll make sure everyone knows what you used to be, who you used to work for, the people you killed. Crane pulled out a folder and tossed it at Ryan's feet. I did my research. You were Obsidian Group's best operator, 13 confirmed kills, 26 if we count the ones you didn't officially report. You murdered people for money, and then you came here and pretended to be a good father. Ryan's blood went cold. Those were sanctioned operations, legal. Were they? Because I found 3 that weren't. 3 jobs you did off the books for cartels and warlords. That's not security work, Mercer. That's murder for hire. Crane smiled. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to convince Elena to settle. You're going to disappear from her life. And you're going to pray I don't send this information to every news outlet in the country. Because if I do, you'll lose everything. Your son, your freedom, your entire pathetic little life. Ryan wanted to kill him. The impulse was immediate and visceral, years of training screaming at him to eliminate the threat. But he couldn't. Not here. Not now. Not with Ethan sleeping at Mrs. Chen's just 2 floors above. Get out of here, Ryan said quietly. Think about my offer. You have 48 hours. Crane walked away, disappearing into the night. Ryan picked up the folder with shaking hands. Inside were documents, photos, reports. Everything proving Crane was right. Ryan had done illegal work, jobs that crossed every line. He'd buried it, changed his name, tried to become someone else. But the past never stayed buried. He called Elena immediately. We have a problem. He explained what Crane had said, what he had on Ryan. Elena listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Does any of it implicate me? She asked finally. No, this is all me, from before I met you. Good. Then we use it. What? We get ahead of the story. You confess publicly. Explain the context, express remorse, show that you've changed. Then we pivot to Novatech's crimes. The kidnapping, the corruption, Everything. Make this about them, not you. Elena, I'll go to prison. Not if we do this right. Not if we have the best lawyers and the public on our side. Her voice was firm. Trust me, Ryan. I've destroyed bigger enemies than Thomas Crane. This is different. This is my life. I know. That's why I'm not going to let him win. Ryan wanted to believe her, but belief required hope, and hope felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. The next morning, Elena held a press conference. Ryan stood beside her wearing a suit she'd bought him, facing a room full of reporters and cameras. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady when he spoke. My name is Ryan Mercer. 12 years ago, I worked private security for Obsidian Group. During that time, I did things I'm not proud of. I crossed lines. I hurt people. And when my wife died, I walked away from that life because I couldn't live with what I'd become. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. Ryan ignored them all. But last month, I was blackmailed into participating in an extraction operation. A man named Damon Cross was being held against his will by Novatech, and I was forced to help retrieve him. Miss Vaughn came with me because she was trying to protect me from the people threatening my family. We broke laws, we used violence, and I'm here today to take full responsibility for that. Elena stepped forward. But what Novatech isn't telling you is that they kidnapped Mr. Cross first. They held him for 2 weeks, tortured him for information about proprietary technology, and were planning to kill him when they got what they needed. We have evidence, testimony, documentation, and we're turning all of it over to the FBI today. The room erupted. Reporters screamed questions, but Elena and Ryan walked off the stage together. In the back room, David and Michael were watching the live stream, their faces grim. That was insane, David said. You just admitted to multiple felonies on live television. I admitted to the truth, Ryan said. That's all we have left. Eek. The story exploded across every news outlet by noon. Public opinion was split. Some people called Ryan a hero, others a criminal. Novatech issued a statement denying everything, but cracks were already forming. 3 employees came forward with their own stories of corruption and illegal activity. The FBI opened an investigation, and Thomas Crane disappeared. 2 days later, federal agents raided Novatech's headquarters. They found evidence of securities fraud, bribery, and yes, the illegal detention of Damon Cross. Crane was arrested at the Canadian border trying to flee the country. Ryan watched it all unfold from Elena's living room, Ethan beside him eating cereal and obliviously playing on a tablet. Elena sat on the other couch, drinking coffee and reading updates on her phone. We won, she said quietly. Did we? I'm probably still going to prison. No, you're not. David got a call this morning. The DOJ is offering immunity in exchange for testimony against Crane and Novatech. Full immunity, Ryan. You'll walk away from this clean. Ryan stared at her, not daring to believe it. Are you serious? Completely. They want Crane more than they want you, and with your testimony, they'll put him away for 20 years. Elena smiled, genuine, warm, nothing like the cold expression she used to wear. We did it. We actually did it. Ethan looked up from his tablet. Did what? Nothing, buddy. Just work stuff. Can we get pizza later? Yeah, we can get pizza. Ryan and Elena locked eyes across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. Relief. Gratitude. Something deeper that neither was ready to name. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Ryan and Elena sat on her back deck overlooking the lake. The city lights reflected off the water, and the air was cold enough to see their breath. What happens now? Ryan asked. I don't know. I've spent so long fighting that I forgot what peace feels like. Elena pulled her jacket tighter. But I think I want to figure it out. Maybe stop trying to destroy everyone and start building something that actually matters. Like what? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She looked at him. What about you? What do you want? Ryan thought about it. He wanted Ethan to grow up safe, wanted to stop running from his past, wanted to wake up without feeling like he was one wrong move away from losing everything. And maybe, he wanted something with Elena, something real and messy and complicated, something worth fighting for. I want to stop surviving and start living, he said finally. Elena reached over and took his hand. I think we can manage that. They sat in comfortable silence, two broken people who'd found something unexpected in each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was real. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. The immunity deal came through on a gray Tuesday morning in January, delivered by federal courier to Elena's house where Ryan had been staying in the guest room for the past 3 weeks. David Chen opened the envelope with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious texts, reading through the legal language twice before looking up at Ryan with something close to disbelief. It's real. Full immunity for testimony against Thomas Crane and Novatech. No charges, no prison time, no criminal record. You're free. Ryan sat on Elena's couch. Ryan sat. Ethan curled up next to him playing a handheld game and felt absolutely nothing. He'd expected relief, maybe joy. Instead, there was just emptiness where fear had lived for so long. What's the catch? Elena asked from the kitchen doorway. No catch. Well, one. He has to testify. Grand jury, trial, everything. It'll take months, maybe a year, and it won't be pleasant. David closed the folder. But after that, clean slate. They can do that? Just erase everything I did? They're not erasing it. They're choosing not to prosecute in exchange for something they want more. David stood, gathering his papers. Take the deal, Ryan. It's the best offer you're going to get. Ryan signed the paperwork without reading it. Elena walked David out, and when she came back, she sat down across from Ryan, studying his face. You don't look happy. I don't know what I am. That's fair. She glanced at Ethan, who was completely absorbed in his game. What are you going to do now? Stay on as my security director? Find something else? I don't know that either. Elena leaned back, and for the first time since Ryan had met her, she looked uncertain. You could always just take some time, figure things out without pressure. I'll keep paying you regardless. That's charity? No, it's gratitude. There's a difference. Ethan looked up from his game. Are we staying here? I like this house. It's got a pool. The pool's too cold to swim in, Ryan said. But it could be warm later, in summer. Can we stay until summer? Ryan looked at Elena. She was trying not to smile. We'll see, buddy. That means no, Ethan said to Elena conspiratorially. He always says we'll see when he means no. I'm learning that about him, Elena replied. The next few weeks settled into a strange routine. Ryan took Ethan to school in the mornings, spent his days helping Elena with security protocols that didn't really need help, and picked up his son in the afternoons. They'd go back to Elena's house, which Ryan had stopped thinking of as just hers and started thinking of as the place they lived, and do homework and make dinner and pretend they were a normal family, except they weren't normal. Elena still ran a billion-dollar company, fielding calls at midnight and disappearing for 18-hour board meetings. Ryan still woke up from nightmares 3 times a week, seeing the faces of people he'd killed. And Ethan still asked when they were going home, even though Ryan didn't have an answer that wouldn't break his son's heart. On a Saturday in early February, Elena asked Ryan to help her with something. She was vague about what, just said to meet her at an address in South Seattle. Ryan dropped Ethan off at a friend's birthday party and drove to the location, a rundown community center in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. Elena was already there, standing in the parking lot wearing jeans and a coat, looking out of place against the graffitied walls and broken pavement. What is this? Ryan asked. A possibility. She walked toward the building. Come on. Inside was worse than outside, water-stained ceiling tiles, floors that hadn't been cleaned in years, a gym with basketball hoops hanging crooked. But Elena walked through it like she was touring a luxury penthouse, occasionally stopping to make notes on her phone. I'm buying it, she said finally. Why would you buy this? Because I want to do something that matters. And because you gave me an idea. She turned to face him. You know how to teach people to defend themselves. You know tactics, strategy, survival skills. What if we turn this into a training center? Self-defense classes for single parents, at-risk kids, anyone who needs it. Free, completely free. Ryan looked around the decrepit building, then back at Elena. That's going to cost a fortune to renovate. But sure. I have a fortune. Several, actually. She walked to the middle of the gym, her voice echoing. I've spent my whole life taking from people, building my empire by crushing everyone in my way. And I'm good at it. But I'm tired of only being good at destruction. I want to build something that helps people instead of hurting them. And you think this is it? I think it's a start. Elena looked at him. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who knows what they're doing, someone people will trust, someone who's been where they are and made it out the other side. Ryan understood what she was asking. She wanted him to run it, to take everything he'd learned, all the violence and survival skills and hard-won wisdom, and use it to help people instead of hurt them. I'm not a teacher, he said. Neither was I. But I learned. So can you. Elena, I kill people. That's what I'm good at, not helping them. You protected me. You saved Damon Cross. You've kept your son safe for 8 years in a world that was trying to destroy both of you. She stepped closer. You're more than your worst moments, Ryan. Maybe it's time you started believing that. He wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because part of him, the part that still hoped for redemption, wanted to believe she was right. If I say yes, I do it my way. No corporate oversight. No interference from your company. Deal. And it's not just self-defense. I want to teach leadership, conflict resolution, how to handle trauma. Real skills that actually help people. Whatever you need. Ryan looked around the broken building and tried to imagine it transformed into something good. It was hard, but not impossible. Okay, he said. Let's do it. The renovation took 4 months. Ryan threw himself into the project with an intensity that surprised him, working alongside contractors and designers to turn the wreck into something functional. Elena handled the money and permits, cutting through red tape with the same ruthlessness she'd once used to destroy competitors. They fought constantly about design choices, about program structure, about how much money to spend where. Elena wanted everything perfect and expensive. Ryan wanted it practical and accessible. They compromised badly, both too stubborn to fully give in, and somehow it worked. Ethan spent his afternoons at the center after school, watching the transformation with wide eyes. He asked 1,000 questions. Why this color? Why that equipment? Could he train there too? And Ryan answered everyone with a patience he didn't know he possessed. One evening in late May, with the renovation nearly complete, Ethan asked the question Ryan had been dreading. Are you and Elena going to get married? They were sitting on the floor of what would become the main training room, eating takeout Chinese food straight from the containers. Elena had gone home an hour ago, exhausted from a board meeting that had gone badly. What makes you ask that? Because we live in her house, and you smile more when she's around. And Mrs. Chen says you're in love, but too stupid to admit it. Mrs. Chen needs to mind her own business. So you're in love? Ryan set down his food, trying to figure out how to explain something he barely understood himself. It's complicated. Why? Because Elena and I are very different people. She's rich and powerful and used to getting what she wants. I'm just trying to keep us fed and safe. But you like each other, I can tell. Yeah, I do like her, a lot. Then why don't you tell her? Because I'm scared. Ethan looked at him with an expression far too wise for an 8-year-old. Mom used to say being scared is okay, but being too scared to try isn't. Ryan's chest tightened. Sarah had said that. He'd forgotten until Ethan said it just now, but hearing those words in his son's voice made something crack open inside him. Your mom was a smart woman. I know. I don't remember her much anymore, but I remember that. Ethan went back to his fried rice. You should tell Elena how you feel before she gets tired of waiting. That night, Ryan drove to Elena's house instead of going back to the guest room he'd been staying in. She answered the door in pajamas, her hair wet from a shower, looking exhausted. Is Ethan okay? He's fine. He's at Mrs. Chen's. Ryan stood on her doorstep, suddenly unsure why he'd come. Can I talk to you? Oh, of course. She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat in her living room, the same place they'd planned their defense against Crane, the same place they'd celebrated when the immunity deal came through. It felt significant somehow, like all the important moments of their relationship had happened in this room. I'm bad at this, Ryan started. Talking about feelings. Sarah used to say I had the emotional range of a rock. That's not entirely inaccurate, Elena said, smiling slightly. Yeah, well, he rubbed the back of his neck. The thing is, I've been thinking about us, about what we're doing with the center, and how we've been living together, and he stopped, frustrated with himself. I'm screwing this up. You're doing fine. I'm really not. Ryan took a breath. When you walked into my restaurant that night, I thought you were the worst kind of person. Rich, entitled, cruel. Everything I'd learned to hate about people with power. And you were all those things. You really were. This is quite the romantic speech so far. I'm getting there. Ryan met her eyes. But you were also brave and loyal and willing to risk everything to protect someone you barely knew. You went into that warehouse knowing you might die, and you did it anyway because you thought it was right. That's not something rich and entitled people do. That's something real people do. Elena's expression softened. Ryan, let me finish. Please. He leaned forward. You scare the hell out of me, Elena, because for the first time since Sarah died, I feel something real. Something that isn't just survival or fear or exhaustion, and I don't know what to do with that. But I know I don't want to lose it. You won't lose it. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, but I'm a mess. I have nightmares. I can barely afford rent without your help. I'm an ex-mercenary with a dead wife and a kid who deserves better than me. Stop. Elena's voice was sharp. I'm not some charity project taking you in out of pity. I'm here because you're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being. Because you've seen the worst parts of me and stayed anyway. Because you make me want to be better. She moved closer. You think you don't deserve this? I've destroyed lives, Ryan. I've ruined companies and people's careers without losing sleep. If anyone doesn't deserve happiness, it's me. That's not true. Neither is what you said about yourself. She took his hand. We're both broken. We've both done terrible things. But maybe that's why this works. We understand each other's damage. Ryan looked at their joined hands, then back at her face. Ethan asked if we're getting married. What did you tell him? That it's complicated. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be. He squeezed her hand. I can't promise you normal. I can't promise I won't have nightmares or freak out when people get too close. But I can promise I'll try. To be better. To be someone worthy of what you're offering. You already are. Elena kissed him, soft and tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. I love you. I know it's fast and probably insane, but I do. It's definitely insane. Ryan smiled. I love you too. They sat there holding each other. Two people who'd spent so long fighting just to survive that they'd forgotten what it felt like to actually live. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't some fairy tale ending where everything was suddenly fixed, but it was real and messy and theirs. The center opened in June with a ceremony Ryan tried to avoid, but Elena insisted on. Local news showed up, along with 50 people from the neighborhood and a city councilwoman who gave a speech about community investment. Ryan stood in the back, uncomfortable in a suit, watching Elena cut the ribbon with the same fierce determination she brought to everything. Afterward, people came up to thank him. Single mothers, teenagers, veterans who'd fallen through the cracks. They wanted to know about classes, about schedules, about whether this place was really free or if there was some catch. Ryan assured them there was no catch, and slowly they started to believe him. The first class was 8 people. Within a month, it was 40. By August, they had a waiting list. Ryan taught 3 classes a week: basic self-defense, situational awareness, and a leadership course he'd developed based on everything he'd learned the hard way. Elena came to observe sometimes, sitting in the back and watching him work. Afterward, she'd tell him what he'd done well, where he could improve, how to connect better with the students. She was good at that, seeing potential in people and pulling it out of them. Ryan had thought that skill only applied to business, but he'd been wrong. Elena could see what people needed before they knew themselves. Ethan trained too, joining the kids' class twice a week. Ryan watched his son learn to fall properly, to block punches, to move with confidence he'd never had before. It was terrifying and proud-making all at once, seeing his child become capable of protecting himself while knowing that capability came from necessity. One evening in September, after everyone had gone home and the center was empty, Ryan and Elena sat on the edge of the training mat drinking water and looking at the space they'd built. "You know what's funny?" Elena said. "A year ago, I would have laughed at this. Giving away money, running a nonprofit, actually caring about people. I would have said it was weak." What changed? You did. You showed me that strength isn't just about winning. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves, building instead of destroying. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I was so empty before I met you. I had everything and nothing all at once. And now? Now I have something real. A family, a purpose, a reason to wake up that isn't just making more money." She looked up at him. "Thank you for that." "I should be thanking you. You saved me." "We saved each other." They sat in comfortable silence until Ethan came running out of the office, where he'd been doing homework, waving a piece of paper. "Dad, look! I got an A on my history project." Ryan took the paper, reading through the teacher's comments. Ethan had written about family and what it means to be brave. Half of it was about Sarah, memories that were fading but still precious. The other half was about Ryan and Elena and how sometimes family isn't who you're born with, but who you choose. "This is really good, buddy. Mrs. Chen helped me edit it, but the words are all mine." Ethan grinned. "Can we get pizza to celebrate?" "Yeah, we can get pizza." They closed up the center and drove to their favorite place, a hole in the wall that had terrible ambiance but perfect crust. They sat in a booth, Ethan chattering about school while Ryan and Elena held hands under the table like teenagers. This was it, Ryan thought. This was the life he'd been fighting for without knowing what it looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and warm and worth every terrible thing he'd survived to get here. Later that night, after Ethan fell asleep in what had officially become his room in Elena's house, Ryan and Elena sat on the back deck watching the lights reflect off the lake. The air was crisp with early autumn, and somewhere in the distance, someone was playing music. "Do you ever think about the warehouse?" Elena asked quietly. "Every day? Does it get easier?" "No, but it gets manageable, and I've learned to live with manageable." Elena was quiet for a moment. "I think about it too, about how close we came to dying, how different everything would be if we hadn't made it out. But we did make it out. That's what matters." "Is it? Sometimes I wonder if we just traded one kind of danger for another. If we're still running, just in a different direction." Ryan thought about that. She wasn't entirely wrong. They were still looking over their shoulders, still waiting for the next crisis. But they were doing it together now, and that made all the difference. "Maybe we'll always be running, but at least we're running towards something instead of away from it." Elena smiled. "When did you become philosophical?" "Ish. That's it. I have no idea. It's your fault, probably. I'll take credit for that." They sat there until the music stopped and the lights across the lake started going dark. Eventually, Elena stood and held out her hand. "Come on, let's go to bed." Ryan took her hand and let her pull him up. They walked inside together, and for the first time in 8 years, Ryan didn't check the locks twice or worry about shadows and corners. He just climbed into bed next to the woman he loved, listened to his son breathing in the next room, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to be happy. 6 months later, on a cold March morning, Ryan stood in federal court and testified against Thomas Crane. He spent 3 days on the witness stand, recounting every detail of the extraction, answering questions from prosecutors and defense attorneys who tried to twist his words into something they weren't. Elena sat in the gallery every day, watching. Ethan stayed home with Mrs. Chen, spared from seeing his father's past laid bare for public consumption. When it was over, when the jury delivered guilty verdicts on all counts and Crane was led away in handcuffs, Ryan walked out of the courthouse and found Elena waiting on the steps. She didn't say anything, just hugged him while news cameras captured the moment for the evening broadcast. "It's done," he said. "Yeah, it's done." They drove home, because Elena's house was home now, officially and completely, and found Ethan and Mrs. Chen making cookies in the kitchen. Ethan took one look at Ryan's face and knew. "You won?" "We won." "Good. The bad guys should lose." Ethan went back to his cookies like it was that simple. Maybe it was. That night, after everyone else had gone home and Ethan was asleep, Ryan and Elena sat in the living room where so many important conversations had happened. Elena was reading something on her tablet, and Ryan was just watching her, marveling at how far they'd come. "What are you thinking about?" she asked without looking up. "How lucky I am. We're both lucky." She set down the tablet. "You know what I realized today? Watching you testify, seeing you face everything you'd done without hiding from it. You're the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm not brave. I'm just trying to survive." That's what bravery is. Surviving when everything tells you to give up. Choosing to keep fighting even when it would be easier to quit. She took his hand. "You taught me that. You and Ethan both. We're a good team. The best." Ryan pulled her close, and they stayed like that for a long time. Just breathing together, existing in the same space, grateful for every moment that had led them here. The center continued to grow. By the second year, they'd expanded to offer job training, counseling services, and a youth mentorship program. Ryan hired 3 more instructors, all people with backgrounds similar to his: former military, former security, people who'd seen violence and wanted to help others avoid it. Elena stepped back from day-to-day operations at Apex Dynamics, putting trusted people in charge while she focused on the nonprofit. She was happier than Ryan had ever seen her, more at peace with who she was becoming. And Ethan thrived. He made friends, did well in school, and stopped asking when they were going home because he'd finally realized they were already there. On a Sunday afternoon in late spring, 3 years after that rainy November night when Elena first walked into Cascade Bistro, Ryan stood on the training mat teaching a class of 20 teenagers how to fall without getting hurt. He demonstrated the technique, rolling smoothly and coming up on his feet, and saw Elena watching from the doorway. She smiled at him, and he smiled back. And in that moment, Ryan understood something fundamental about life. It wasn't about erasing your past or pretending you'd never done terrible things. It was about choosing, every single day, to be better than you were yesterday, to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of hurt. He'd spent 8 years running from who he'd been, but now standing in a center he'd helped create, teaching kids how to defend themselves, coming home to a woman he loved and a son who was finally, truly safe. Now he understood that he didn't need to run anymore, because the person he'd been had led him here. And here, despite everything, was exactly where he was meant to be. After class, Ryan, Elena, and Ethan went to the park near the water. They sat on a bench eating ice cream, watching boats cut across the lake, and didn't talk about anything important. Just small things. Ethan's upcoming science fair project, a board meeting Elena had later that week, whether they should get a dog. Normal things, boring things, beautiful things. And as Ryan watched his son laugh at something Elena said, as he felt the warmth of the sun on his face and the weight of Elena's hand in his, he realized something that would have seemed impossible 3 years ago. He was happy, not in some perfect, uncomplicated way. His nightmares still came sometimes. He still looked over his shoulder out of habit. He still carried the weight of everything he'd done and everyone he'd hurt. But he was happy anyway. Because happiness, he'd learned, wasn't about deserving it or earning it or being good enough for it. It was about accepting it when it showed up, holding on to it fiercely, and refusing to let your past define your future. Ryan Mercer had been a lot of things: a mercenary, a widower, a survivor, a fighter. But now, sitting in the spring sunshine with his family, he was something else entirely. He was home.